Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Scale My Shopify Store podcast. Kath Langman here with you. And I'm really excited about today's episode. I hope you're going to love it. Now, it's often the case, and I know I've experienced this, I imagine many of you have as well. It's often the case that entrepreneurs, they launch their brand feeling as though they've kind of done the hard work by actually getting their product to launch, but while designing and manufacturing a product and getting it to market is no small feat, the real hard work of actually growing a business is yet to happen. Building an audience, gaining brand awareness, getting customers to actually buy your product, not just once, but over and over again to produce consistent and growing revenues. None of that stuff is easy. Often it's quite boring, and there are often frequent problems and disappointments and issues that require solving along the way. The marketplace is constantly changing as well. What worked one month may not work the next. Today on the show, I'm joined by Raphael McGowan, who is the founder of the innovative Aussie brand, Bakslap. Since launching only a few years ago, Bakslap has experienced some rapid growth and is now primed to take some major international markets by storm. Now, there are 4 key takeaways that I really want you to take away from this conversation that I think could really help ignite massive brand visibility and fuel faster growth in your own business. Starting with passion and purpose. These are the 2 ingredients that fuel Raf's motivation through all of the ups and downs, but also form the basis of the stories and content that capture and engage his audience's attention. And then the 2 key strategies, public grassroots events being one, and partnerships or collaborations, you might call them, being the second, help to take these stories to the masses, giving Raf and Bakslap the kind of brand awareness and also open up so many unexpected and amazing bigger opportunities as a result as well, all of which a successful e-commerce business needs in order to scale and grow, right? We need to leverage those sorts of opportunities and the brand awareness and the audience building capacity of those activities in order to scale and grow. Now, aside from creating his incredibly successful venture, Raph is also humble and clearly enjoys what he does every day. His positivity is quite infectious. And so I really hope that you enjoy listening to our conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. And so without further ado, let us invite Raph onto the show. Welcome to Scale My Shopify Store podcast. It's very cool to meet you today and to welcome you onto the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so obviously you're Aussie, you're up on the Sunshine Coast. Tell us a little bit about you and Bakslap. Give us the intro spiel.
Okay. So very briefly on myself, I'm from a big family, 7 brothers and sisters, mum and dad. Always wanted to have my own business, had no idea what that would entail. And I was enrolled to go to university straight after high school. I took a year off, saved some money, and I said to mum and dad, I'm going to go over to the US for 3 months, have a bit of travel, then come back and do something at university.
Yeah.
5 years later, from when I left, I finally came back to Australia. I was just learning too much and growing as a person, experiencing different countries. It was amazing. And then when I finally did come back, then I decided that university was the next stop for me, and completed that here on the Sunshine Coast. Then went to work in Sydney for 6 years. And during that time, I was able to narrow down a business idea, and trying to get it off the ground over 12 months whilst working full time was really difficult.
Challenging.
So that was it. So I resigned from that particular job, moved back up here, and over the last 6 years have spent time getting Bakslap off the ground. Taken
Yeah.
from originally day one was an idea where I sat down at at a desk with a little bit of paper, had no idea how to go about it.
Yeah.
And certainly much the wiser now, 6 years on. Have to be. You have to be.
Yes. Well, if you're going to survive for 6 years, sometimes, do you feel a little bit like if you knew then what you know now, would you still have done it?
Yes, I never really look back and think, oh, if only I'd done this. Like you did the best you could
Yeah.
at that particular time. And it's just amazing how much you can learn in a few months and also in a number of years. And
Yeah.
now when you're working and speaking with friends or speaking with other people in their business and there's a problem and it's like, you know what? I've been there. Here's a possible solution for it. Like you just get so much savvier
Mm.
with business. So I can't wait until I'm in my 50s. I'd imagine I'd be very savvy by then.
I love it. I love it. So was your previous career, was it kind of a useful career in regards to having some skills and knowledge about, the basics of business before you
Um,
started?
good, good question. It So traveling overseas really helped in
Mhm.
terms of being able to work with my hands and being able to pick up work wherever I went. But it was also those people skills that
Yeah.
I was really able to develop. Previous experience has always been in hospitality, and I always thought that would be my career. I just really loved the buzz, high
Hmm.
energy, and working in a team.
Yeah.
And then when I finished university, I really wanted to experience corporate jobs.
Yeah.
So that's what I did when I was down in Sydney.
Yeah.
Worked at banks and consultancy companies, and it was quite a challenging role
Mm.
because I enjoyed it, but I wasn't passionate about it. That's
Yeah.
what was really missing.
Yeah.
And then the last few years in Sydney, I worked for a not-for-profit, and
Nice.
although that was such a corporate role because we were responsible to raising lots of money from government and corporates, it still just provided more satisfaction because you
Mm.
could see that you were doing something that would help other people.
Yeah, a bit
And I
more of a
always thought,
direct impact.
exactly. And if I was
Mm.
going to have my own business, I wanted to make sure that that was a part of it.
Mm. Well, you've certainly started a business that can do that. And from what I've read about Bakslap, has a pretty powerful origin story as well. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Certainly. So when I finished university, I wanted to do something for a few months before going down and commencing like your corporate career. And I got a call from a friend who was over in the US. He'd studied here at university, and we had a bit of a chat. And I said, "What are you up to?" And he said, "Actually, in a few months, we're going to go over to the east coast of America, and we're going to cycle across." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I thought about it and called him back the next day and said, "Can I join?" And it was an amazing experience.
How long
And
did
you,
that take? Oh my goodness.
so I cycled for I think just over 74 days.
Wow.
And it was a brilliant time. However, as you mentioned, the origin story for Backslap, it's sort of it came at that point. So it
Mm.
was probably about a week before I finished cycling, I got a call from Dad, and he told me bluntly, but just very direct, that my older sister had been or had a mole removed from her back, and it was melanoma, and they said that they were only giving her 11 months to live.
So it had
Um,
been very advanced by that stage, by the sounds of things.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
By the time it was
Tragic.
discovered,
Mm.
and then I came back to Australia. All of our family moved to Sydney to be with her and her
Hmm.
young family.
Mm.
And then when my sister Tess passed, that was really something inside me changed where I thought if I'm going to do a business or I'm going to do something in life, I want to make sure it helps other people.
Mm.
And it was almost as if what I was asking for had come to mind. So
Yeah.
I went about trying to learn more about skin cancer, melanoma, this issue that affects so many Australians,
Mm.
particularly the young as well as
Yeah.
the old, but it was just never on my radar before. Uh,
No.
so since then,
Despite having such an outdoor active lifestyle, I mean, you're out in the beach and the surf and yeah,
yeah,
it,
so I never hold anyone at fault if they're of any age and they haven't really heard of it or they don't take
yeah,
any precautions and outside because you don't know what you don't know.
no,
And I believe that there's many different ways and I try to go about them, creating fun ways where you can provide that education.
yeah. So it sounds like with Backslap, I mean, obviously you've created this product that is super helpful. And just that on its own can help all of us to avoid getting those skin cancers in those hard to reach areas. But also you must be doing all of these events as well, and that education and the community aspect must be a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I still see Backslap as an e-com brand
Yeah.
because we predominantly sell online,
Yeah.
but being online, that's really our marketplace where we can deliver not, yes, you've got the product side of it, but also that awareness.
Mm.
And that's why we create a lot of those events. So
Mm.
the business isn't just about making and selling products. A big part of it is really about working with other brands, big organizations, small organizations, and that we share a common message, which is, hey, let's provide some education in a fun and positive way about
Mm.
enjoying the outdoors, but
Yeah.
do so responsibly.
Yeah.
Um, and those events they were really a big turning point for the business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just because you can bring a visual. So with online, it does lack at times having real faces, real people, and it's always something that I've wanted to come through with the brand.
Mm.
And by doing that, people can enjoy the events, they can take part, and then if that makes their way to finding the product and learning more about it, wonderful. But first and foremost, let's create that awareness
Yeah.
in the community.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of brand awareness, regardless of whether it's a social impact kind of business or not, is pretty critical. I know, with our clients and our audience, oftentimes when they're really struggling in the moment with getting traction with growth or revenue or things like that, the missing piece is actually people don't even know it exists. It's that awareness piece. Uh,
Yeah, and if you
mm,
were to create that awareness, there's I find there's two ways you can go about it. One, you can pay a lot of money to run a
mhm,
lot of paid advertising,
yes.
which I've never really been a big fan of, or you can go and do something, whether it's yourself in the community, link up with other brands, even as simple as a competition. Um,
Mhm,
just come up with some sort of initiative that brings to life what your brand is about,
mm,
and that's it. And then organically, that gets shared. Media picks it up.
yeah.
It's amazing what can happen from it.
Yeah, I think something I really love about what you're talking about with these events, that I think a lot of people miss out on as business owners is, they think, oh, I need PR or awareness. I'll go and work with some influencers. And then everything is just online still, and, I think a lot of influencers, they're still very at arm's length. It's through the screen versus, when it's in person like that, there's the interactions that are tangible, and there's that personal touch that you just can't have online.
Exactly. And look, we've never used influencers. It's just something that I think because we want to put the brand and our message first and foremost rather than
Mm.
the product,
Yeah.
it would just seem counterintuitive to work with an influencer that says, hey, look at this product, I'm using it, where I'd
Mm.
rather that happen organically. We
Yeah.
do have ambassadors, and
Yep.
we're quite selective on our ambassadors, and our job is, and they always say, okay, what do I need to do with the product? And never have we put our products in our ambassadors' hands. We've
Mm-hmm.
said, no, no, that's not the point of this
Mm.
arrangement and partnership. You go and do your thing. You found something you're passionate about. Within that passion, there is the element that they are wanting to promote awareness about being sun safe, but they're also someone who's found their passion. And I was once in that position, and people supported me. So it's wonderful now to be able to support them.
Mm. Mm. That's beautiful. I love it. And I think also just part of my reaction to that is like Chat GPT and AI is taking over so much content, but it can't take over that kind of content because it's
No,
human beings. Yeah, I like it.
yeah. But
Something else.
sorry, just to not to cut you off, Catherine, but
No.
one example I thought then, so you spoke about using influencers or PR.
Mm.
Um, we've never really had to pay for PR. It's always been earned. And I think
Mm.
that's a good suggestion for any business in that if you're wanting to get what your business is about out there, um, by working with another brand or coming up with an initiative. We had one initiative where we called it Australia's biggest backslap.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that, so we promoted it locally within our own community. And the idea was to get a couple thousand people down to a beach on a particular morning.
Yeah.
There was music, some stalls, and
Yeah.
then we had the local radio there, and they broadcast and they said, okay, for the next minute, how many people can we get simultaneously applying sunscreen? So some
Yeah.
people use their back slap, some people use their hands. There was like generations
Yeah. Uh,
doing a conga line, applying. Like it was a really powerful
how
image to kick off
fun.
summer.
Yeah.
And just by organizing that, we then
Yeah.
had half a dozen brands come on board locally,
Yeah.
um, as well as then we created a media release that went out, and of course that was then picked up by the Today Show. They did a live cross, and that sort of earned media, that being able to get on live TV across Australia, talk about what you're doing, why. Like it really is invaluable. Of course,
Mm.
sales came in that particular day, and I might come back and just mention one thing as a ecom business early on that was an oversight. But it's pretty powerful, and you can still use that today.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like a flash mob kind of strategy.
yeah, in a way, in a
How
way.
fun. That's so cool. I can imagine, anyone who was there on that day would have been talking about it for a while afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, so cool. I was actually going to say that, what I've noticed on your website is that PR, the videos of the Today Show and other PR opportunities that you've obviously had, and also awards. There seem to be a couple of other strategies that have, whether that's intentional or a byproduct of those events, must have helped with that awareness as well and building the brand.
certainly. I think it's important that when you do get those opportunities that you are able to put them on your website, just so people can see, because what we try to do is make sure that there's a history,
Mm,
um, and we're certainly, where it's appropriate, acknowledge that, yep, we're a small business. When we started, we made these mistakes, but this is how we got to this point, and always making sure we give thanks to those people that have helped us. And we've been very fortunate in business. I think when you have your own business, you probably plan for like 10-20%, and then it's just these opportunities that just pop up one day via an email or a call.
yeah.
And I've had them a few times. We had them back in 2019 with Facebook Australia, who were
I wanted to
traveling around
ask about that.
Australia. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they were they were aware back in 2019 that more and more small businesses were starting to use their platform for advertising, but they wanted to make sure businesses had support, and to know Facebook's here to also help you showcase a brand more than just, hey, buy a product. So they
Yeah.
went on this community tour all around Australia, and in all the communities they came to, they asked for certain businesses to sit up on stage and do a bit of a panel discussion. And thankfully, a friend who was at the business chamber said, hey, you should speak to Bakslap. He
Yeah.
just did this event. He's starting to do a few things in the community. So they asked me, I spoke, and then after it, someone pulled me aside from Facebook and said, you know what? We're actually working on this campaign later in the year, and I'm just going to let you know I put you forward, but I can't say any more. And I'm like, oh, okay. Didn't think much of it. Didn't think much of it. But even that was like, Facebook was such this big behemoth company,
Yeah.
to be able to find and speak to people face to face from that company. It just
Mm,
made it a little bit more real. And
mm,
she kept her word. And a couple months later, she called and she said, we want to pick Bakslap as one of 30 businesses and really promote how you're using our platform to share your story, your brand, rather than just a product.
hmm.
And they picked businesses that also had, they coined it like a product for purpose.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing campaign. Um, Really a highlight of the business, I would say, over the last 6 years,
Yeah.
where we got to do a lot with them in Sydney, went to Parliament House,
Wow.
spoke to MPs there. And yeah, I think that was surreal. And then probably, what was it, 2022, we started to do more and more with Amazon in Australia, and they reached out and they said that we'd love to do a campaign just
Hmm.
on Bakslap. So they come
Hmm.
up to our warehouse, they film that, and then there was some other material, and then they also put us on the front cover of their annual report.
Wow.
And like it's mind blowing, and
Yeah.
both were doing it because they wanted to showcase a brand story
Yes.
rather than just selling a product.
Yeah.
So if a business can do both, you certainly, it would be advised to, you definitely try to do that.
Well, storytelling is how people remember too, right? Like I think regardless of whether you're a social enterprise, I think having a story as part of the brand should be necessary.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And I think so. I know, um, we'll talk about Shopify, but going back a little bit. So when we originally launched the business, we set up a WordPress website,
mhm. Yep, like many,
and
yes.
then yeah, and then we're like, okay, and now we need to start selling the product. And there was
Yeah,
this long PDF type form
yeah,
that people would have to fill out, and I wondered why nothing happened. And then we discovered Shopify, but
yeah.
I've always kept the two platforms.
Okay, interesting.
So
Yeah,
if you were to go to the like bakslap.com, that's still WordPress, but
yeah,
then any shopping links will
yeah.
then
So Shopify.
punch you out to
Yeah,
Shopify. Yeah.
nice.
And I think just because we've kept that WordPress because it's got like a history of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they're good for, SEO and content and all of that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And you can, I mean, obviously with WordPress, it's as a platform, it's made for that content management, but not so much the commerce, which is where
No,
WooCommerce comes in. But yeah, I think Shopify is much better checkout engine than WooCommerce
definitely.
for sure.
Definitely.
And definitely more stable during the peak traffic times of the year. Yeah. I would love to dive in a little bit to your experience in the whole kind of product development and bringing this to life from that aspect, because I know so many of our audience, my own background as well, that bringing a product idea to life through that manufacturing and design and prototyping, and then trying to make sure that the ongoing production is not riddled with mistakes and errors and all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty challenging thing, so I'd love to hear your story from through that experience.
Certainly. So I would say it almost took 18 months from when I first left Sydney, came back to the Sunshine Coast, sat down and thought, okay, how am I going to get this business off the ground? I didn't have a product design.
Mm-hmm.
I had an idea in my head, but it wasn't a design. So I just started sketching it out on bits of paper. And then I worked with, so I was up on the Sunshine Coast. There was this particular building called the Innovation Center, and there were
Yep.
probably 30 different startup businesses, all at different phases on multiple levels.
Wow.
And it was really a blessing to discover that place and be based there for those first couple of years
Yeah.
because everyone was just super collaborative. There was a industrial designer, a
Mm-hmm.
CAD drawer. None of
Mm-hmm.
these terms I had any idea of when I
No,
started. I was
no.
so green. And there was someone doing 3D printing, and it was just finding those experts
Yes.
and then sharing what I was doing. This is what I was wanting to create, and then developing the product like first prototypes. It would be going out and trying to find anything that was similar on the market or
Mm-hmm.
that had the functionality that you wanted. And I remember what I first did was I hired someone on Upwork, which was a CAD drawer, and I drew something very poorly with a pen on a bit of paper, and I took a photo and I sent it to him and I said, "Can you draw this?" And he came back with a 3D drawing that I then went to the university and said, "Can I please have this 3D printed?" And they waived the fee for it.
Yeah.
And I just remember standing there holding it, going, "I had an idea on a bit of paper,
Yeah.
and now it's something
It's a thing.
tangible."
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a wow moment. And
Mm.
then over the course of the next 12 months, there was 9 other prototypes with the
Mm-hmm.
product. Um, so none of those were 3D printed. It was all using home material to get an MVP off the ground, Play-Doh, anything I could do that would give it the feel and the size, and then I'd go out to people, put it in their hand, and say, "What do you think of this?"
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to the point where I wanted to start spending some of those hard-earned money
Yeah.
on prototypes, then I
Manufacturing.
started, yeah, that well, then I started getting it printed with 3D printing so it would actually function,
Right.
and then that really helped bring it to life. Then it got to the point where you then started engaging with different factories, and yeah, then when I was confident I just don't think you're ever 100% ready on your first version. You
Mm.
always want to tweak something. Maybe I need a little bit longer. And I spoke to a good friend and he just said, Raf, there comes a time when you just need to go to market.
Yeah.
Go with what you got, get
Yeah.
feedback, and
Yeah.
then you can refine it.
Is
So I
someone going to
thought,
pay for
okay,
this?
yeah, are they? So we thought, you know what?
Mm.
We've now got the ninth prototype. This is the
Yep.
version we're going to go with. And in
Yep.
parallel with that, I'd never done packaging, branding, any of that. So all that is done at the same time, learning
Mm.
all these terms,
Mm.
which is amazing because a lot of them you only have to learn once.
Yeah.
And
Let's
and
hope.
then we thought, yeah, then as you said, Catherine, then it's time to get it out to market and see whether people are going to buy it. So we
Mm.
did a Kickstarter campaign.
Mm-hmm.
That was our way of showcasing the product and seeing whether or not people would pre-order it. And I
Yep.
remember the prototype in that Kickstarter video that I'm holding up, it's blue. It was I'm not sure what sort of material it was, but we had to get it out of the sun because if it got any sort of heat to it, it would start to melt, and then
Oh
it went
no.
floppy, and then it went floppy in the afternoon,
Oh dear.
and
What if you
we were
need to
trying to
reapply?
it wasn't supposed to function. It was just supposed to be a visual
Yeah,
because it
got
was months and
it.
months before we'd even come up with the final design, but it was something.
Yes.
And I just remember a guy's trying to hold it, filming a scene at the end, and he's like, it's pretty much just fallen
Oh,
apart.
oh no.
But whatever you need to do, really, that was it. And
Yeah.
thankfully, that Kickstarter campaign went well,
Yep.
and that allowed us then to put the down payment,
Hmm.
um, get our first run complete.
Hmm.
And then it came to the point where, and again, this is a bit of an oversight, which I'm always trying to tell others, don't overlook it. You
Mm.
get so caught up in, I've got an idea, I get the product made, it's finally here. Oh, I overlooked selling it and getting it out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, and it's like they think they've done the hard yards, and in reality, they've done the fun hard bit, but then the hard work starts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so then in 2019, it was like, okay, now you've got a product, it's here, you've sent out your Kickstarter um, products. Now
Mm.
what?
Mm.
And it was almost like you were just starting because you didn't really have a plan in place. So I thought,
Mm.
okay, then maybe we can start using Facebook to get it
Mm-hmm.
out there.
Mm-hmm.
Very green. I'd never used Facebook Ads Manager before. And then over the many years now, I've taught myself, done lots of courses, worked with other people. So I absolutely love getting in there. Facebook, Google, Pinterest, Amazon, you name it.
You must
Anything.
like data then.
Yeah, there's just something exciting about it that
Yeah,
a couple of tweaks here and there can make a huge
I
difference.
love it.
And always
Yeah.
testing all that content. I
Yes.
loved it. So we got in there and then it was a matter of starting to run ads, and it was a really slow process in that first year.
Mhm.
Um,
What
just
was the
because
hardest part of getting moving? Because, there's so many different challenges that, we all face in business. What was some of the hardest things for you?
I'd say the hardest was probably, okay, are we trying to sell this product through retail stores or are we trying to sell it online?
Right.
Um, and
Just
so
resolving the business model.
Yeah, very much so, because it wasn't something you really, as I said, you did the fun hard part, and then it
Yeah.
was like, okay, now I've got to get the product out here,
Yeah.
and probably just learning all those platforms from day one
Hmm.
was difficult.
Mm.
There wasn't a lot of money in the business to be spending on advertising, and it was just so easy to spend 30, 50, $70, and like that's gold to a
Yeah.
business early on.
Absolutely.
So,
Mm.
so that was quite difficult, and then just figuring out who our target market was. We didn't
Hmm.
really have a database of customers. There wasn't a lot of comments online other than those who did the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Like who who are we going to target this product to? So
Yeah.
initially we thought we want to raise awareness around skin cancer. So let's target people using it at the beach outdoors. And then we saw a bit of a spike. I also must mention too, so when we first started, we were still using the WordPress form,
Hmm.
and then it would have been around September, October. Then that's when we switched to Shopify.
Hmm.
And even learning Shopify, setting that up was great. And then I think it was good timing because then it was also leading to the Christmas period. People naturally were looking for gifts, something a little bit different. And
Hmm.
then after January, it was like, why are things slowing down? Um,
Happens every year though, right?
Yeah, and then that's when another bit of like an aha moment when we actually had some ads running. People were leaving comments. This is wonderful, and they weren't mentioning they were using it for sunscreen. They were mentioning they were using it for mobility. They were using it for aged care. They were using it to keep their independence because they were 80 years old and they had to pay a nurse or a next door neighbor to come over and apply lotion to their leg or their back. And
Oh
they said, I've
wow.
been looking for a product. And I went, oh,
Huh.
wow, okay. So I thought what to do. So I went to a good friend of mine um, who I would say was very close to 70 and just filmed a very basic video on my phone of her. And I didn't ask her to apply it to her back.
Mm.
It was more just in a nighttime setting. Can you pull up the pajama leg, do it on apply on your leg?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it. Very simple, but then it was almost discovering, oh, you could put text over video.
Yes.
So it was like 15 seconds, put it up, and
Yeah.
I didn't touch that ad probably. at least 12 to 15 months.
Wowzers.
It was probably our best performing ad ever back in the day where it
Yeah.
was a lot cheaper to get conversions with Facebook. And
Yeah.
it was brilliant. And it just goes to show that, yeah, we start with this focus on people using sunscreen or being able to apply it to that part of their back that some people use it for. But then it opened up that, hey, there's many, many other uses for the product.
Mm.
And that's really then when we started getting um, more content specifically for that
Hmm.
to be able to offer it.
Well, I think, having something like that in the winter months is probably good for a brand like Bakslap.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
that's the idea.
yeah.
And I think,
Mm.
and the thing is, a lot of through our socials as well, we don't really showcase the other, like say, target areas that we are advertising our product to.
Mhm.
Eventually we will. And again, that's something else we need to find out how best to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but the beauty is that no matter who's using it, who's coming in contact with the brand, they're still having that um, responsibility when you're
Mm.
outside, that sun-safe message.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. So where Bakslap is now, from what I can gather, is you're expanding into the US and you're making some bigger waves with the brand. Tell us, yeah, where is the journey up to for you guys?
What are these bigger waves?
With
What
bigger waves, yeah.
what did you read? Did you read something or see something with bigger waves?
No, I just popped into my head, but just in terms of expanding into the US and what's happening? What are you doing?
Certainly.
What's next?
Um, so the idea is that we'd love to be able to get the product out there further
Mm,
and the message further.
mm,
Um, and I remember when I was starting the business, there was a bit of a personal and also a business checklist. And
yes.
personally, I really feel that that's satisfied in terms of being able to do some events, um, mention my sister positively, have her images pop up online. That's really been done, and that'll continue now that we have lots of partnerships with other organizations
Yeah.
and these events. So that part of it's done, and business wise, a lot of those boxes have been checked, but the one for export
No.
hasn't. And
Yeah.
so probably 12 months ago, we thought now it's time to look to see what's involved with exporting.
Yes.
And speaking to a few friends that had done it and then reading on it, there was a lot involved
Yes.
and a lot of stories where people lost a lot of money
Yes.
and had things damage their brand and their reputation. So fortunately, at the same time when we were looking, Trade Investment Queensland had a
Hmm.
program and a grant that
Hmm.
appeared.
Hmm.
We applied for it. Um, didn't think we were really in for it because again, I thought our business isn't that big.
Hmm.
Um, maybe they want someone bigger, but thankfully they said yes.
Fantastic.
And over the last 12 months, we've been a part of that
Hmm.
and have learnt everything that is involved. But now we've got this document that we've got actual examples, our own research about everything that's involved. So you feel much more comfortable going over to the US. And it was
Hmm.
only this week that we've been speaking with different companies, and I believe that we're pretty close with selecting one that we want to work with in the US. Um, and it's, yeah, that'll be pretty surreal when that happens to be able
Mm.
to have the product over there. And it's exciting at the same time because then you can use a lot of what has made the business successful here in terms of partnerships, initiatives, then being able to replicate those over there with a US spin on it and to be on the ground and create that organically, that's going to be
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. And I really wanted to ask you if you intended to do those sorts of community events, but with people over there and, essentially replicate what you've been doing here.
I think we have to.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Backslap if it was just in the US running things from Australia, trying to
Mm.
sell the product. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be. There's already a plan we've got um, with the help of some of our partners here, like Volkswagen, where it'll be like a co-branded van um, going up and down a little part of a particular coast, um, like guerrilla marketing in a sense, just to
Yeah.
create some buzz. But I
Yeah.
believe in order to be able to build that audience, but as well as say get some earned PR, you have to be
Mm.
on the ground.
Yes.
Uh, and my mum is certainly someone that I want to take with me. She's been to other events with me. I think it's important to have family involved where they can. And look, Mum loves it. She's done some other events, and she said that they're some of the best experiences of her life. And it would
Fantastic.
be really rewarding if I'm over there. I always have this picture in my head. It used to be Ellen, but now I've sort of scaled it back to any sort of network news to be in studio and to be able to have Mum there with me.
Yes.
I think that would be really nice that we can both talk about Bakslap, what we're doing, and some of the story as well. It'd be really pretty special.
Ah, I think that sounds amazing. I can't wait to see that happen. And
Yeah.
also, I'm kind of feeling a bit excited on your behalf, having heard, some of the opportunities and partnerships that came out of those initial events that you started running here. I mean, the scale of what could happen in the US would be just so exciting. Must
Yeah,
feel
and
tantalizing right now.
it does. It's taken my mind there, but then after we have this conversation, it'll probably go back to whatever I'm doing day to day. But it is
Yeah.
really nice, and it also gives me a good feeling to know that you're moving forward and these genuine relationships that you've been able to build in Australia with these organizations that share a similar message, they also have connections in the UK, in the US, and they're wanting to then be able to connect you. And likewise, there's organizations over there that are always looking for new, creative, innovative ways to help share that message, to reach
Mm,
new audiences.
yeah.
And I'd like to think that we've got some good experience doing that over here. So I'd be more than happy to do that in the US.
Yeah. Sensational. I've got a couple more questions for you, if
Oh,
if I may,
yeah.
because I know you're a teacher as well, and so I wanted to ask you what if there could be one or two key pieces of advice from everything that you've learned in your journey with Bakslap to impart to somebody who is maybe coming up the ranks in starting a business and trying to get a business off the ground. What would you want to pass on?
Great question, Catherine. And it's good timing also. So the subjects I usually teach at university, it's usually one or two a semester. They're usually all based around
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, marketing, new business ventures. And this particular semester, it's really starting at the very beginning. Um, so my advice would be similar to what we're doing this semester is that start with identifying some of your strengths, some of your weaknesses, but more so, what's your passion?
Mm,
Because you need to find that product, or sorry, not product, but business that you're passionate about because times are tough. You're going to hear lots of no. You'll run out of money. You need to find ways to then find that money. And
mm,
if it's not something that excites you and you're passionate about, then
yeah.
it'll be very, very difficult to follow through. So my
Yeah.
suggestion is find something you're passionate about. Um, and once you've found something you're passionate about, go about the process of seeing what opportunities are available.
Yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
some, you always hear ideas and opportunities. And I always say that there's so many ideas. So many people mention, oh, I had the idea to do an applicator. And
Mm,
and I think the difference between being an entrepreneur or starting your own business is that you take it from the idea and turn it into an opportunity by
mm,
using some action. So
yeah.
that would be my
Yeah.
advice is that don't rush finding your passion. It took me till I was probably early 30s till
Yeah.
I was really till I found that passion.
Yeah. Me
But
too.
in the meantime, get as much experience as you can. And when you do find that passion, I would just say commit to it. You don't
Mm,
have to go all in.
mm,
Sometimes if you have other responsibilities, like you might have a family, or a full-time job, that's fine. But just do something so you're at least chipping away with it.
taking some
Um,
action, even if it's little. Yeah.
some action, some action.
One of my favorite books last year that I read was The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler. And he talks about, this neurobiological process of, high achievement essentially. But the first two ingredients have to start with passion and purpose, because if you skip those and then you get to the hard yakka, you run out of motivation very quickly.
You
So
do.
it's amazing that you've said the same thing. Mm,
Right. And I just say once you do discover your passion and you're able to turn that into a business,
mm,
it doesn't have to be a business. I know the first 3 years I didn't take a wage,
mm.
and the first two I worked Friday night, Saturday, Sunday at a pub, and that
Yep,
covered my living expenses, and then that gave me Monday to Friday
the
just to work
focus.
on my idea. So you do
Yeah,
whatever you need to
yeah,
to make it happen, but it's probably the most rewarding thing that I've done because it's just given me flexibility, and it's using like 100% of my capacity and personality, where
Yeah.
sometimes previous jobs, it would really only call for maybe 30. So I
Yeah.
love that I can, yeah, I
You can
can really
combine
live
all of
each
that.
day. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
don't see the weekend as the weekend either. That's something I'm always conscious about. It's like every day you can work. If you need to take time off, you can, but
Yeah.
you have to work on the weekend and others might be relaxing. It doesn't matter because you enjoy what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're almost the master of your destiny.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's very rewarding. So I would say find your passion and just start on it, and the
Mm.
skills you learn from doing it in your own business and having to learn firsthand,
Yeah.
you really just can't get them anywhere else.
Yes. Yeah. You've almost kind of answered my last question. I always love to ask people what they
Oh,
love the most about being an entrepreneur and owning their own business.
great question. What do I love the most? It's probably using all of myself. Like I feel I'm Raf no matter where I am throughout the day.
Yeah.
Where sometimes that was subdued in more corporate settings
Yes.
because I couldn't be myself. But
Yeah.
now, yeah, day to day, I do feel like myself.
Yeah.
I really do.
How awesome
Um,
is that?
it's a great feeling. It's
Be
a great
pretty cool
feeling.
if everyone could say that at the end of the day. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. So, where should listeners go to find a Bakslap? And where should I go when I take my boys up to the Gold Coast next month for where they're going to be racing in an outdoor pool? Where do we go?
I'd say people can just go to our website. So Bakslap, BAKSLAP .com,
Yep.
and just start there.
Yep.
And
Perfect.
as we mentioned, wherever that takes you, it takes you.
Yeah.
All the normal places, your social channels, we're all there.
Fantastic.
Everything's obviously different
Yeah.
depending on those, but yeah, start at the website and see where that
Excellent.
takes you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining me today, Raph. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today and just appreciate you sharing everything, your story, your experiences, what you've learned. It's been invaluable.
Well, it's certainly given me a buzz for the day ahead. So thanks very much, Catherine.
Thanks.